Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now, on with the show.
Hello and welcome to the ShowRatings.tv Pilot Roundtable, a Southgate Media Group podcast. I'm Kyle Tremblay, the editor-in-chief of ShowRatings.tv, which is a user-driven television review website where you can rate and review all your favorite shows. And I am joined, as always, by a staff writer and member of the ShowRatings.tv social media team, Olivia Richards. Olivia, hello.
Hey!
So, we are here to talk about two pilots that premiered this week. The first of which was heavily anticipated by the internet and comic book fans around the world.
Yes.
Billed as a television miniseries event. And then the other, which we'll talk about second, got pushed back from a fall release last year into a weird early January release. Stars an entirely African-American cast, and is airing on Fox, who fired the head of programming that originally greenlit it. And you're never going to guess which one was higher rated. But first, we're going to talk about ABC's Agent Carter, set in the Marvel Universe. The pilot prominently incorporates elements of the Marvel films. Olivia, what is your history with Marvel? What were your expectations going in? What did you think about Agent Carter before you ever watched Agent Carter?
Well, I watched Captain America first and foremost. I started watching Marvel's Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm a lot more familiar with the Marvel universe, not necessarily through comics, but just through all of their movies and now spin-offs of, the TV shows. I fell in love with Captain America. I loved Agent Carter. I loved Peggy Carter as a character just in the film alone. And they took a character that could have just been the love interest, and all of a sudden we see her on her own show. And I don't know if it's completely possible to be in love with the television show, but if it is at all possible, I think I'm having a love affair with this television show.
So, did you anticipate that going into it, or is this a newfound discovery of yours?
I think I knew I was going to like it, but I didn't know how much I was going to like it. Based on seeing the promos for it, I knew it was something that I definitely wanted to watch. And then, literally within the first 10 minutes of watching it, I could not look away. I was riveted.
Do you like it? I know it's early, but do you like it more or less than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I would say more, even just based, we did have that kind of, bonus of being able to watch 2 episodes.
Yes.
So, just, from the 120 minutes I've seen so far, I'm in love with it. I love what they're doing.
Well, I'm glad you have some familiarity, and I'm sure I'm going to pepper you with a few questions here. Because I have, as people who know me know, I have a few weird, moral stands that don't make any sense. And one of them is that I don't see Marvel films. I don't see comic films, but I definitely don't see Marvel films. And I also, it's weird stuff about me. So I don't know anything about this, which might be something that is unique to me, because it seems like everybody sees the Marvel films.
Yeah.
So, how prominent is the Peggy Carter character in Captain America?
She plays because she's not your typical love interest in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
She has a pretty pivotal role in the movie, but then to see her branch off and have her own completely separate storyline that like isn't really influenced by how much like really we see her in Captain America was really interesting because I wanted more. It's like if you were really like enjoying Peggy Carter in Captain America and you wanted to know her background,
Hmm.
then you're getting this in the show.
So is she like the co-lead of the movie? Like, would she be billed second, right behind what I assume is Captain America himself?
Basically, because like in the
Okay.
movie, you had the team of people who was working on building Captain America, like the engineers and the people who had this idea to bring about this character and the people who are creating this name. And then you have Peggy Carter, who's more on like the military side of things, and she's heavily like invested in what's going on in the war and Captain America's role in everything that's going on in the military side of things.
Okay, I see. So I feel like we should start by talking about Peggy Carter herself, which is Haley Atwell, the
Yes.
actress, who I don't know. I think opinions on this pilot are positive to mixed. I would say in general, like critical opinions, but it seems like Haley Atwell has a 100% approval rating.
Oh, from
I,
what I've seen and just, from my experience with her, oh my gosh, how could you not love her first and foremost in everything, but especially in this role?
Yeah. So what is it about her that makes her so appealing? Because I definitely enjoyed seeing Haley Atwell on my television screen. Someone who I did not know prior to watching this pilot.
Yeah, it's funny because I was a huge fan of hers from Pillars of the Earth. So that was when I was first introduced to her work. But I think just her approach to acting and to what she's bringing to the character in general, she has this strength because her character is military trained and she's working, in these like in a male centered industry and business. But then on top of that, she has this vulnerability. So you're seeing this dichotomy of this female character where they don't make her strong and like to seem masculine, but they don't make her seem like vulnerable to be like typically feminine and weak. And I think that's what the appeal is with her as an actress and her with this character.
Yeah, you said she's in a male-centered world. I feel like that is underplaying it to a degree
Oh my God,
because
yes.
every single guy she works with is like the goon in a, of like in like a bad guy's posse. Like she's working with guys who are the muscle, basically in terms of their outlook on life and just general like demeanor. Like these are the biggest like boneheads to a comic degree. They are just buffoons. Like I don't even know if they're like sentient beings or just like organisms of some kind that sort of like walk the earth to like demean women. Like it's like wow, they are they're pretty severe.
Basically, and the way that they write, that first of all, I like that they made it the era appropriate misogyny that they put in because it is also
Yes.
placed in the 40s. The things that they're saying, like the
Right.
fact that they're making jokes about her being the secretary and like things like that, where like, yes, we have misogyny that exists in 2015, but it to some degree there are overlaps, but it was a vastly different thing in like, 1946 where we're
Yes.
seeing it. So I do appreciate that they took like that more historical approach to how they wrote it.
Okay. You by bringing up 2015, you got to the crux of the matter with my problem with this show is, which is
Okay.
I'm fully supportive of strong female leads. I like it when a show is centered around a strong woman. Um, this show is obviously directly feminist, like in the like
Yeah.
in the like not in like a passive way, but in a very very active way, done chiefly by making like 90% of the men on screen again complete buffoons. Like and apparently based on the first two episodes, Peggy Carter is some kind of like godlike being who is like the perfect spy, the perfect conversationalist. Like she didn't make any mistakes, which is fine. I mean, I guess that's fine. It's that kind of show bothers me. Whether it's a man or a woman, I don't like it when the lead is basically infallible, which seems
Yeah.
like what we're dealing with here. This kind of feminism that the show traffics in is what I would call like Spice Girls feminism, which is it's like it's like girl power kick punch, but not in like a discriminate or nuance. Like I don't think this show is making a point. Is what I guess I'm getting at. Is like for all the feminism, this feels more like just feminism for the sake of it, and not to say the Spice Girls like weren't important for their time, but I guess that's what I'm getting at is like in 2015 I think we have a lot more nuanced messages about about social issues in general, and this show. I guess what I'm struggling with, I know it's supposed to feel old-timey because it's set in the 40s, but the message of the show to me feels very dated. Like, this feels like the kind of show that would exist in, like, the late 90s in terms of, like, the messaging and the way that the social commentary is presented utterly without nuance. The way that it's basically plays like the wannabe video or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you get that at all? Like, I don't know. Do you have any sense of that at all, or are you just kicking and punching along with it?
I mean, now that I think now that we're talking about it, you start to kind of see that. And I did with like what you were saying with like the male characters and how they're written, and like what you said with like how it kind of seems like she's doing everything perfectly. I would say that I like that they're throwing in like the downsides of what she has to do. The fact that like she mentions that it's really hard for her to get close to people emotionally.
Yes.
And like the fact that she had to watch her roommate die, and you actually got to see her cry and break down over what just had to happen because she wasn't able to protect her. Like she didn't have that, and like normally it's like a female character in a show gets killed and then we just move on and we don't mention it again. But you see Peggy actually openly like really upset about what had happened, and then you also see her looking at the funeral and like looking at the obituary with her roommate's name in it. And I kind of do like that they bring that in because I don't know, I think it just at least from what I've seen in shows like this where they have like the raw girl power message, you don't really get to see that much.
Yeah, true. Didn't we? Maybe I'm missing a scene. Didn't we meet the roommate in the scene that she was killed in? Like, wasn't that our first roommate scene? Is that like a movie character that we know or something?
No, that was.
Okay.
I think we met her like 2 or 3 times before, like kind of briefly and in passing. But we see her like her Peggy offering to bring her roommate like a cup of tea, and like it's kind of clear that they do have kind of a close relationship. But yeah, all of a sudden it's like, oh, just kidding. Like,
didn't her roommate have like consumption or something? Like, wasn't her roommate like seriously ill when she was introduced?
Something wasn't right.
I was like, wait, you're gonna introduce the terminally ill roommate and then just shoot her 2 scenes in? Okay. Like, I don't know. It felt like to me that character existed for the sole purpose of immediately dying, which is a little bit sketchy. I mean, I guess one of the reasons I'm kind of lukewarm on this is that I was lost. Like, I was absolutely, utterly lost. And I guess that's understandable because I haven't seen the movies. And I mean, I guess... I mean, if I'm holding this show to the standard that I hold other shows, whether they're based on books like Game of Thrones or whatever, shows with source material, I feel like the show should stand on its own. And at least for me, I watched both hours of this and was just lost. Like, I did not follow the plots of the episodes at all. And I'm assuming that's because I have no, like, I don't understand who Jarvis is. Like, I just don't have any way to triangulate that relationship, so I'm trying to learn on the fly. Like it's like oh, they're not a couple. Like, is he a bad guy? Like, I still don't know who Jarvis is, to be quite honest.
Honestly, I'm still figuring it out because like what I felt like when I was watching it is that they took the movie and I felt like I was almost watching like a sequel to Captain America, like. And like it was sort of a direct branch off from the movie, and then I would say like throughout like partway through the first episode or into the second episode that it really started to feel like its own TV show. And then all of a sudden we're meeting these new characters, and then I was with you where I was kind of lost in the plot, and I was like I wanted to understand it.
Yeah. I couldn't. I mean, maybe you can. I couldn't tell you what happened in these 2 episodes. Like, I couldn't. Like, if someone asked me to summarize the contents of these episodes, I couldn't do it. I would basically just say like, Haley Atwell was in a really nice evening gown at one point.
Oh my god! Yeah.
And then like a club owner or something. Like, I can't even get like 25% in with these episodes. And I guess, I mean, maybe it's a fair assumption the show is making that people have seen it, or maybe it's just, I don't know. Like, but to me, like, I mean, I guess it's admirable that they're not going down the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. route, which is, at least when that show started off, felt like basically CSI Marvel. You know, like that show's like first run of episodes was basically just like procedural television, which I could follow, but which wasn't very good. This this strikes me as being like better quality wise, but I can't really make a judgment because I was just so lost in what was happening.
No, I feel like that's where it kind of lost me was like the writing for like this particular character for Peggy herself was incredible. Like stylistically, I
Okay.
fell in love. Like the props department is just knocking it out of the park. But having to kind of like dredge through and try to wade through like kind of the plot material that yeah, I couldn't tell you. Like a lot
Okay.
of like kind of it felt like non sequitur things were happening.
Yes, that was well. I thought that was just me, so I'm very interested that that's you too. Although to be
No,
fair,
yeah.
you have background with the movie. You aren't like a comic book crazy person.
No.
We should
Yeah,
have
I
we should have
like
Ricky on.
yeah, please or Sophia.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, Sophia, she would still be talking. Um, Shout out to our dear friend Sophia, friend of the podcast. Okay, so was there anything else about this pilot that made you love it? Because you loved it unabashedly, despite sharing my misgivings about the plot.
Yeah, honestly, I think it just boils down to I just love how they struck a balance with Peggy's character and just getting to see a character that like I didn't feel like I was rolling my eyes throughout the entire thing. Like
Hmm.
I was actually really compelled by what was going to happen and seeing her kind of just how she carries herself in this world and kind of just everything about it just I don't know. I was trying to like
Yeah.
put it in words, but yeah, I was watching it and I found myself just really like unable to look away from I guess like the approach to how they wrote Peggy's character. And again, like I loved her in Captain America, and to get to see her exist in her own world after everything that's happened, and they don't keep making direct references to like, where's Captain America? We heard that you were with Captain America. Like, hey, where's Steve? Like it's she like kind of reflects on it a few times like in her personal life, but other than that, she's doing her own thing.
Yes. Well, for my part, I loved the music.
Yes.
which I just I think that the show really nailed the 1940s atmosphere in general. You talked about the props, just the way that they incorporated music prominently into these two episodes. I really enjoyed, and that's what sort of kept me going, kept me interested through these two because I was struggling at some points to actually watch this. I almost bailed, but then there'd be like some really like cool like old timey jazz, and I'd be like, yeah, I could do this. And then it's like, oh, Haley Atwell's on screen, I'm okay. So so that's how I got through this. But so this pilot, it's hugely hyped. It's like an event. We're talking about this when Shield premiered. What was it, 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago?
But
It did a 4.7 rating in the 18 to 49 demo, which made it basically the most popular show that is in The Walking Dead. This premiere did a 1.9, which isn't like a disaster the way that like Red Band Society is a disaster ratings wise. Like it's
yeah.
not like a shameful rating, but it's also not great. Like it's kind of like it's like the rating that like Castle gets, and Castle's in like its sixth season. You know,
Yeah.
like it's not great. So what is there anything you could take from that? Because this show seemed like the head of Marvel or someone prominent at Marvel had said like they expected this show to do massively well, and it just isn't. It didn't. Like it didn't come close to being a hit. What do you have any theories on what that is? Like why that is? Because the show was reviewed pretty well. Like critically, it didn't get panned.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. That's a really good question because I mean, like when I think about Agents of Shield, I don't know if that's just because like people were more fascinated with the entire force, like if people just didn't want to know more about like, oh, that's a really good question.
I think Shield might be. I think that might have been what caused it because that show did a huge rating, and then within 8 weeks was doing like a 1.9. Like
Yeah.
Shield basically does like between like a 1.9 and 2.2 every week now. So it's lost over half of its audience, and I think I think that half of the audience who saw Shield and bailed on it because the first run of episodes was really disappointing. By all counts, Shield is better now, but that show had a big initial audience and almost immediately lost it all. I'm wondering if that portion of the audience that bailed on Shield is now weary, and didn't come out for Agent Carter. And that would be my theory on what happened, which is that Shield sort of poisoned the well, and Agent Carter is actually a better show than Shield, or it certainly is a better show than Shield was. And now, but people aren't giving it the benefit of the doubt. They were the way they were giving Marvel shows prior to that.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting theory because yeah, I kind of like I wasn't really looking up how it had actually been trending in the ratings. Like I saw how people were responding to it like over social media and stuff like that. But to kind of see just like what you're working with in terms of like the actual audience base, yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean that it's just one theory, but it is it has to be bitterly disappointing for ABC, who I mean like the way these movies work is they release every single one and they make hundreds and millions of dollars, if not billions, I think for Avengers,
Right.
and the way they release Shield, it's like, oh, we can just take that right over TV, and this kind of puts the brakes on that plan a bit,
A little bit, yeah.
little bit. So final verdict, Olivia, thumbs up or thumbs down on Agent Carter?
For me, I'm still giving it a thumbs up.
Of
I
course.
really want to see where this goes. My heart's completely in it. So
Yeah, absolutely. No, you should. And I'm really on the fence, but when in doubt, I usually err towards the sides of trolling people. So I'm going to give it a thumbs down, which isn't going to be popular, but I mean, for me, like it's like I know it's pretty good. Like I watch it, I'm like, oh, this has all the trademarks of quality. The actors are good, the lead is great, the show looks great, it sounds great, but like I honestly didn't enjoy myself that much during these 2 episodes. But by the end of the 2 hours, I felt like it was like a it's like what I feel when like The Voice airs a 3 hour episode. I'm like, oh, oh. I'm barely making it. Yeah. So a reluctant thumbs down for me. More of a thumb sideways, but I'm just gonna troll people. Um, oh,
perfect.
okay. So Tuesday, the big Marvel show premieres does a 1.9 rating. The very next day, Fox premieres Empire, and it literally doubles Agent Carter's rating with a 3.8, which makes it the highest rated show Fox has premiered in 3 years. Um, so same question that I asked you first about Carter. Olivia, what did you know about Empire going in?
Really? Well, I saw the commercials and the
Me
promos,
too.
and it looked like kind of just a big soap opera.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that's very dramatic. Like we're talking about like any sort of like Godfather type story, or like I'm thinking like the Borgias and like anything that we've
Yes.
seen from this sort of thing, where you're like you have this like pseudo mafia family, and take that into the recording business and then add an all black cast and hip hop, and I'm like,
Yeah.
there you go, there's your show.
Yeah. So what did you think of the pilot?
For me, I it didn't really do much. Like I
Yeah.
was interested kind of just watching it, and I'm like, okay, so like we have the head of the family, like ruthless, business oriented, family oriented, and he has a very like strict vision of like what he wants to see with the industry that he built from the ground up. He has his crazy wife named Cookie, which
Mm-hmm.
would explain why maybe she was in prison. Usually like people who have like I don't know, there's something about being named Cookie that like you maybe think that something didn't go right.
Yeah.
And yeah, his 3 kids all, having different temperaments, and they're all kind of vying for the head of this company.
Yeah.
And then hip hop. So
Lots of hip hop.
lots of hip hop.
First of all, we have to lead with Cookie with because Taraji P Henson's performance is basically the embodiment of the like 100 emoji, like that you see that people put. Like she's like if you spent all 140 characters of a tweet doing the 100 emoji and then like retweeted it 50 times, that's Taraji P Henson in this pilot. She is like trampling cities like Godzilla basically for the entire hour. She exits prison wearing what I would guess is about a $20,000 like outfit. Like
Because why wouldn't you?
she is stepping out of prison in like leopard print. And I mean, this is like a top to bottom tour de force. By her, and I that character was like just ported here straight from the sun, basically. I mean, if my excitement over that is any indication, this show is hip hop Nashville. It's like
Basically,
if
yeah.
Nashville was a hip hop show, if Chibeston was rapping, basically, like that's what we're talking about here, and predictably, because that is like 100% my scene. Like I watched like half a season of Nashville before I got tired of the country music, so you replace that with like basically all my Spotify playlists,
Oh god.
and this is certainly my favorite network pilot in the last 2 years, and it might be longer. Like a show could not be more in my wheelhouse than Empire. So I thought I was gonna like it. I was kind of worried that it would be sort of cheesy and inauthentic or whatever, and I was so in on this. I'm frightened by how much I enjoyed this show.
We're flip flopping here. Oh my
We
gosh.
are.
Awesome.
You are the one down on it, which is a rarity. And I'm the one up on it, which is possibly rarer.
Well, because I'm sitting here like professing my love of Agent Carter.
No.
We're having like two sides of, us like establishing like a firm love affair with a new pilot.
Yeah. Oh, it is a love affair. I'm in love with the show. I enjoyed this pilot so much. Just start to finish. I enjoyed all the characters. I really liked. Well, I'll ask you. Did you have any characters other than Cookie? We're not even going to talk about Cookie again.
Has my heart.
Were there any characters that stood out to you? Yeah.
I did like the eldest son. I think that he has a really interesting dynamic with the father, and it reminds me of, because I was a huge Borgias fan, so it reminded me of like the relationship that Rodrigo had with Cesare, and kind of like the way that they kind of interact with each other. And then also, isn't the eldest son gay?
The middle son is gay.
Oh, middle son. Okay.
Jamal, who was
Gotcha.
I thought that was a very, very interesting arc. That he's both the most talented son and the clearly the one with the business sense. He's the one who would actually be really good at running this company, and yet the father won't even consider him because he's gay. And the weird thing is, like, at least based on conventional wisdom, as like hateful as the father comes off, like he's got a point. Like that's what's interesting, is like the hip hop industry isn't accepting of homosexuals in 2015, no. And that's what's so interesting to me, is like this. I'm fascinated by that character, because he's, in this pilot he basically says, I'm going to come out, and so he's not out yet, but he's going to, and it will be fascinating, at least for me, someone who's in love with the show, as to see like what happens to that character, and if he can if they decide that he can have a career, and what, like, it's just fertile ground for making the kind of social commentary that I think I respond to a little more, being able to make nuanced points and that kind of stuff. But I mean, like, this is clearly a soap opera. Like, there's no.
Oh my god, yes.
It's a soap opera because the head of the Empire, Lucius, played by Terrence Howard, who, if it wasn't for Cookie, would be stealing all the headlines. Walks in behind it, or not even behind, just standing in front of his childhood best friend, shoots him in the head. That's how this happens.
Why not?
Yeah. So if that's not a soap opera move, I don't know what is. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to ask you about this, because you're clearly not into it.
I know. I'm actually having fun listening to you, because I was sort of like, I was fascinated by what I thought he was the oldest son, but I guess it's the middle son. Like, I kind of, even having like sort of like a meh, like, yeah, kind of lukewarm opinion of the show, I did find that storyline fascinating, and I love what Terrence Howard is doing with the character, and yeah, I think that those were like kind of my positive notes for the show. And even with like kind of my lukewarm response, I was still very kind of captivated by the performances.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, again, Taraji P. Henson is stealing everything. Like, she steals every scene she's in. And when she walks into that boardroom, like, during, like, the big shareholders meeting, and just, like, takes over the room, I was like, yes!
Going down.
Classic soap opera move. But it just, I don't know, like, comparing it to Agent Carter, and obviously wildly different shows, but we're talking about them in the same podcast. So it's just the way, like, the central character, like Lucius on this show, he's so hateable. Like, he's like, he's not even an anti-hero. He's really just the villain of the show. But he's not like until he shoots that guy in the head. Well, I guess he's also homophobic before that. So he's got a lot of villainous traits to him. But he's also not like a mustache twirling evildoer. Like, he's clearly like someone who's meant to be disliked, and someone who I disliked. But he's and I guess in the flashback we do see him throw away a baby in a trash can. So maybe he is a mustache twirling evildoer. Now that I'm thinking of it, but I don't know. It
You know,
just
honestly, I think
yeah,
he's just gonna add that to his like his resume of things.
yes, yeah. Well, when I actually started listing them out, I was like, oh, wait, no, he just is a bad guy. Um,
Yeah.
but I guess that's I like there are more shades of gray in this show. Like no one's gonna make the argument that Peggy Carter is anything but the hero of Agent Carter. like the
Yeah.
show is named after her. She's like she does everything perfect. Like even her like fault quote unquote faults are like she cares too much. It's just like the sort of
Yeah.
she's like I know the character itself has more than one beat, but it's kind of all one note to me. Whereas this is like, but I mean, Cookie gets out of prison, and you're like, oh boy, here comes the villain. She's here to ruin everyone's life, and if only she had stayed in prison longer. And then by the end of the hour, I'm like, I think Cookie's the hero of the show. like like it like as we see the flashbacks of Lucius and as we see like the terrible stuff that he's doing and the homophobia and just it becomes clearer and clearer that like for all Cookie's faults she's actually our protagonist and she's the one working with Jamal and trying to sort of defy the father's proclamation that Jamal will never be successful in hip hop. And it's just like wow, like I don't know, like the characters in the show have such a complicated relationship with one another, and
Yeah.
that I don't know, I really dig that, and it is a soap opera, but it's also like has music that I love, and I just loved this. I
Well,
loved
I
it.
would say I was also fascinated by like the idea of the entire thing being centered around the family, but to what extent? Because I feel like when Cookie said that like she was doing everything for the family, like she wasn't kidding.
Yeah.
When Terrence Howard's character said, "I'm doing everything for the family," it wasn't he needed his family to do his work for the business. So everything he's doing is calculated for the business and his family fits in as a business plan.
Yes.
So that's what I found to be really fascinating because again, I'm seeing like strong connections between this and like The Godfather, and I'm a huge fan of like Mario Puzo's work, and then like watching the Borgias, and it all just fits into like this idea of like the crime family, and like you have like the mother who wants to do everything for the family, and you have the father who's working to support his own cause, but he's using his family to further his own agenda.
Yes. Right. They're almost like the Lannisters.
Oh,
like
yeah.
right, like he's Tywin, like he's ruthless and brutal and sells out his family in a second, you know, and only wants to promote the, like he's like how like he dealt with Jamal, his gay son, the way that like Tywin dealt with Tyrion. Like
Exactly.
right, like that kind of just callousness. And like Cookie's like Cersei, like she's basically just sipping wine and destroying fools.
Oh, and like cheetah print.
Yes, right. The difference is that Cersei is wearing queen's gowns. Cookie's rolling up in cheetah print and like 6 scarves
And a fedora.
and a fedora. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I don't know. This all worked for me. One of the I think really just pulling it back for a second from the TV landscape. This show is like entirely African American. Like one of the sons has a white girlfriend, and I think that's the only white person on the show.
Yeah.
So for a not just African American led, but entirely like black show to do this kind of rating, and for it not to be a comedy, like this isn't like a sitcom. Like Blackish, just last fall was the highest rated new show, and now this is probably going to be the highest rated new show of the spring. Is that signaling something about TV, or is there just something specific with these two shows that made them work?
Yeah, I mean, I think like, well, it's again, like I feel like if the show had aired even within the past 10 years, like if we had looked back at like, the show airing in like 2005, I don't know if it would have gotten as high of a rating, but I feel like suddenly we're just seeing all of this representation and we're shattering stereotypes, and we're like, okay, we can have an all black cast, but we can like yes, like that's good, but it's like, what are we going to do with that? So let's do that, but like we need a compelling storyline. Like let's do that, but like we don't need to have like what everyone thinks we're going to see when you hear all black cast.
Right. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right that it wouldn't have succeeded in 2005 necessarily. I think it has to do with the sort of unstoppable progressive trend of society that in general society becomes more progressive, but it also has to do with the fact that there's never been a TV show like this.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that tying this together with Agent Carter, there have been a lot of comic book TV shows in the last 2 years, and it could just be that people are getting burned out on them. You know, that the audience for these shows, when you combine the fact that that Agents of Shield didn't premiere very well quality wise, that the audience for these shows is kind of worn out. You know, that they just, you know, maybe they're watching Arrow and The Flash and Gotham, and it's like, oh, geez, like if I love comic books, that's a lot of time each week I'm spending watching television and not reading comic books.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you were like someone who is just like, I love nighttime soap operas, I love musicals, and I love hip hop music, you have never in your life had a show to watch, and it's like now you have it. So it's like maybe the broader audience for comic book stuff is way bigger, but that audience is very well surfaced, whereas the audience for Hip Hop Nashville might be 3.8 million, but my goodness, all 3.8 million are watching. Like,
Right? Yeah.
right? Like, that's just every single person who's been waiting for this show watched it, and maybe that's what's happening here. But either way, I think it's very heartening to see a show like this do a rating like that and sort of prove that maybe TV networks should start thinking outside the box a bit. So that was what I
I'll
took.
be thanking them for it. So.
That's my optimistic takeaway, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. The show could like tank next week, and none of that matters. But who knows? All right. So Olivia, final verdict: thumbs up or thumbs down. Don't let my passionate arguments sway you. Thumbs up or thumbs down on Empire.
I'm going to reflect what your take was on Agent Carter, and for me, I'm going to have to give it a thumbs down. It
Fair
just
enough.
didn't really do anything for me, despite, you know, any interest I did have in it. But yeah, like overall, I was sort of like, eh.
Well, I'm glad you gave it that rating. I just want you to know that it hurts my soul.
I know.
Oh, to counter your thumbs down, I'm giving it 2 thumbs up. I couldn't have loved it more. Again, this is my favorite pilot I've ever talked about on the Pilot Roundtable. It did it for me. I don't know. I'm gonna watch this show. I'll probably start writing about this show. Hopefully, I'm as excited about subsequent episodes as I am about the pilot. But yeah, this one really worked for me. So, we'll end on that weird reversal as you and I go through some kind of body switch movie. We'll be back to normal next week. I'll hate everything. You'll love everything.
Next episode of Freaky Friday.
Next episode of Freaky Friday podcast. That podcast is on the Southgate Media Group. So listen to it, guys. Listen to the other podcasts there. You can follow Olivia on Twitter at RichardsOlivia, and me on Twitter at KyleLovesTV, and our website, Show Ratings, at Show Ratings TV. Until next time,